I love reading all different genres, fiction, nonfiction, but I also love reading to learn. And I love that I can read in an eco way by using my library, which is also free. You can learn the full benefits of using a library in this video, and yes, you can live zero waste on a budget. So let's keep learning. It is a great way to open our minds, learn new things, learn new perspectives, and learn about why we're fighting for the planet in the first place. Today we have some eco-themed books, but also some political books. The other two videos in this series are strictly eco books, so why would I throw some political books into this series? Well, eco-living is political, and all these different socio-political issues are connected through the concept of intersectionality, which is a great book that I talked about in the first part of this series. So if you want more recommendations, check out part 1 and part 2 down below, and let's get into it. Hello everyone, it's Emma, and welcome back to my channel where I talk about all sorts of things at zero waste, focusing on free, easy, and fun ways to live low waste. And today I am bringing it back for another installation of Craft and Yap. I'm working on my rug still. I'm making a rug out of old t-shirts that I turn into t-shirt yarn. Here is what we're working with right now, and then I'll show you the progress that I made at the end. Let me know what you're crafting down below. Let me know your eco or political book recommendations down below, and let's get into it. The first book on this list is actually a book that I didn't like. It was the very first book that we read for my eco book club, which you can join down below, and honestly, none of us really liked this book. So why am I including it on this list? Because I think there are some people who would find it valuable, and I want to talk about it anyway, because there are some things in that book I wish she would have touched on more, but she just really didn't get into the nuance on a whole lot of stuff. And that's because it is a manifesto. It is called like the Environmentalist Manifesto or something like that. So here's the synopsis. We've been saving the planet for decades, and environmental crises just get worse. All this Tesla driving and lead building and carbon trading seems to accomplish little to nothing, all while low-income communities continue to suffer the worst consequences. So why aren't we cleaning up the toxic messes and rolling back climate change? Why do so many Americans hate environmentalists? Now, this all sounds great, right? So why did I hate this book? Mostly just because the tone of the book is so angry. I've read sad books in my time, I've read angry books in my time, but like something about this book just really set me off. I think especially in a time where we need to be prioritizing hope, we need to be prioritizing climate wins. She's literally sitting here talking for 2.5 hours, tearing apart environmentalists and the climate movement. And it reminded me a lot of that climate denier that I reacted to for an entire hour that you can check out above and below. And honestly, it just really sounded like she had a bad experience with 1 or 2 environmentalists and then used that as her, I don't know, reasoning to crap on the entire movement. Because I get it. Yeah, there are very self-righteous people who the only thing that they do for the planet is drive a Tesla, and they want to be thanked for it, and they want to be praised, and they want to talk about how great they are. I totally get the anger, but then she just stereotypes every single environmentalist and says, you know, all environmentalists think Teslas are going to save the world. All environmentalists do X, Y, Z, and it's like, no. When's the last time you talked to an environmentalist? She literally spends almost the entire book demonizing small actions. It's just such a stark comparison to another book that we're going to talk about later in this list. That author also says, hey, yeah, you using a reusable water bottle might not save the world, but every little bit of good we do truly does matter. And this author of Stop Saving the Planet just does not say that at all. Now, why am I recommending this? I think this book would be good for people who are also angry. If you are angry at climate change, if you are angry at the government for not doing anything, if you are angry at self-righteous Tesla drivers, whatever, this book might be for you. So I did want to include it on the list, and there was one part of the book that I did like. It was the end of the book. She did offer some solutions that we can implement as individuals. I rated this pretty low. This is probably my least favorite eco book that I have ever read. I still see the value in it. Take that as you will. Let's move on to some better books. Okay, next is How Democracies Die, and this is our first political book on the list. Man, this is so good. I read a ton of books on government, democracy, fascism from like November to January, and I've been taking a break because that was a lot, and now I'm experiencing it all in real life. So if you want to dive into the world of political books, I think this is a great place to start. Though I am also a huge fan of this book right here, How Fascism Works. Both of these are probably up there with my favorite political books. So here's a quick synopsis. So this book is about democratic backsliding and how elected leaders can gradually subvert the democratic process to increase their power. The book also offers stark warnings about the impact of the Republican Party and Donald Trump's presidency on US democracy. This book was great, but also a little sad because I think it was written around 2021. It was just after Trump's first presidency, and it was kind of like a little bit hopeful, like, yay, we're done, that stuff is in the past, and now we're here. So that is a little saddening to listen to that in the current political context, but still it is a great starting point for learning about fascism, democracy, tyranny, and how democracy can slowly but surely be destroyed by any politician. I know it mentioned Donald Trump in the synopsis, but it does issue warnings that this could have happened with any president. Prior presidents presidents, like Reagan through Bush, set this up, and how the Democratic Party is not that much better either, right? So like, yes, they're picking on Trump in this book, picking on him because he was the president while this was being written. He did a lot to dismantle democracy and still is, but they do very much explain like, hey, this is not just a Trump problem. We've been going this direction for decades. So yes, it is a bit scary, but it is very important for us to learn about this and understand how this stuff works. And with authors who are Harvard University political scientists, I think this is one of the best when it comes to political books. All right, number 3, I actually have this one. Most of these I just listened to, but this one I read physically. This is Mutual Aid by Dean Spade. I bought this right after the election because I figured it was the time, and I really like this book. This is specifically if you want to learn about organizing. It's a little bit if you want to learn about mutual aid itself, and a little bit if you want to learn about protesting, but it's mostly for organizers, especially because the subtitle is Building Solidarity During This Crisis and the Next. And I thought surely I would learn something about mutual aid. I would learn something about volunteering. I would learn something about giving back to my community and building community. And you do get like little bits and pieces of that throughout the book, but it really is mostly focused on organizing. What to do if you're an organizer, how to keep your organization organized. I did learn a lot, but like as someone who's not a community organizer, you know, maybe I will be one day and this book will pay off more, but I didn't find it extremely valuable since I'm not an organizer. I still want to read it again. I still think there's a lot of value in this book. My expectations was a lot different from what I actually got with this book. So maybe if you're like me and you have no idea where to start when it comes to mutual aid, I would get started first. I would go find a mutual aid organization, maybe read a different book on the topic, and then save this one for later. I think this book is great if you have been involved in mutual aid before, but if you've never done mutual aid, it could be maybe not the right place for you to start. I still think it's valuable. I just don't think it's a great starting point. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. Do I just need to read it again with a different mindset? Another eco book club read that we read this year was The Day the World Stopped Shopping. And honestly, my bar was set kind of low for this one. I don't really know why, but I was blown away. I love this book and I talk about it all the time. So our author poses a simple question. What would happen if the world right here, right now, everybody quit shopping? So it is an exploratory book. It's not based off of an experiment or anything like that. He travels the world during and post-COVID, how different parts of the world were affected by the world shutting down for a few weeks or months. So it is still based on past events, current events, and lots of research. So he explores things like, would the economy collapse? Would pollution go down? Would we still be able to advance as a society? What about climate change? What would happen to the climate? Would we work less? Would we have stronger relationships? He expands on so many different socio-political things. While of course our current system would truly collapse if the world were to stop shopping, thanks to capitalism, we can and should consume less, and overall that was the point of his book. No, we probably can't give up consuming 100%, but we all, especially in the West, especially in the US, are over consuming. So he makes you question not only how much are you shopping, but how much energy are you using? How often are your lights on? How often are you driving? Are you working too much? Should you be spending more time with your friends and building community? It really gets you thinking about a lot of things, and honestly, low-key changed my life. Maybe not that extreme, but it made me look differently at my life and my actions and how I'm consuming things, to include media, social media, etc. So read this book, get outside, and or spend some time with some loved ones. This list is full of books that have ranges of emotions, right? That one, my bar was so low and it exceeded expectations. This next book, my bar was so high and I really didn't love it. So this next one I also own because I was so excited to buy it. Threat Multiplier. I thought I was going to love this book and I didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it. So the subtitle is Climate, Military Leadership in the Fight for Global Security. I thought this was gonna be more of how the military is impacting climate change, but rather it was how climate change is impacting the military. I didn't love it. So I'm a veteran, if you didn't know. I was in the Air Force. So this was highly interesting to me. It does talk about the military going green, especially in terms of military needs. And I think plenty of stuff in this book is very important, because the only way we're gonna get the military to care about climate change is by showing the military and our government how much it is affecting security, global security, national security, our troops, equipment, money, etc. The government is not going to care about climate change out of the goodness of their hearts. They're going to care that it saves them money and saves them resources. Our author does get into that. She worked for the Department of Defense, I forget in which capacity, for decades. But truly my biggest critique with this book is that our author does not focus nearly enough on the fact that the military is one of the leading contributors of climate change. Yes, it's great that the military is now caring about climate change in terms of defense and how it's going to make global security even more of a mess and sociopolitical tensions all over the world more of a mess. But you guys, you're the ones creating this mess. Not only climate change, but the military and the government are also the ones causing wars in the first place, displacing people in the first place. So it was an extremely frustrating read. I wish she would have focused more on climate change itself and less on the military. I understand, like, based off of her background and stuff, but like, dang, my bar was so high and I really did not love this book. I did learn one little tidbit of information in here that I am like so fascinated by now, and it is that Bush Sr. and Clinton were making great strides to eco-fy our military. Our military was going green in the 90s, and then 9/11 happened. So 9/11 set back our military from going green, set back climate policy in the US, set back personal data security in the US. Just the massive impacts that 9/11 had on the US and the world. Fascinating. I want to expand more on that in the future. Maybe just for fun, maybe in a video, we'll see. It took me a while to slog through it. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it either. So take that as you will. Okay, this next one is technically a 2-for-1. It kind of depends on how you consume it. It is 2 novellas, The Monk and the Robot by Becky Chambers. We've got The Psalm for the Wild-Built and A Prayer for the Crown-Shy. Same characters, 2 novellas, about 4 hours each. I listened to them. Yet another set of books that my bar was so low. I don't like novellas, I don't like sci-fi, but this was our chosen read for our book club yet again. And I was like, I'm gonna go into it with a fresh mind. I'm going to listen to this, focus on it. I loved it. It was so good. This was our first fiction read, the book club. Honestly, it's also my first fiction book in all of these lists, and they are just so wholesome. These novellas are about a tea monk who lives in a sci-fi future and runs into a sentient, walking, talking robot who wants to learn about all humans. This future is focused on community and healing, and our main character, Dex, is lost in life. They just switch jobs to become a tea monk, but they still feel unsatisfied, so they set off on this trek. They're just wandering across the country until they meet our friend, Moscap, our robot. So that's kind of where we end off in the first book. They meet, they go to this temple, I think. I don't really understand the ending of the first one. I enjoyed the second one a little bit more because now they are touring the country. The rest of the country is very excited to meet Moscap, and Moscap is so excited to learn about humans. Not only does Moscap learn about humans, but so does Dex. Dex learns about themselves, and all while connecting to nature. There's lots of themes of nature and climate and healing, community. I absolutely love this world. These short little books with a little bit of an eco twist. So I think this is a great place to start if you are looking for some eco-themed books, but you don't really like nonfiction. I think diving into fiction is a great way to still learn about stuff, but be entertained, and these books are both really, really short. Another book that I own is The Serviceberry by Robin Wall Kimmerer, author of Braiding Sweetgrass, which I talk about all the time. When I saw that this was announced, I think around November of last year, I literally ran, maybe I walked, to my local indie bookstore and snagged this so quick. Don't really buy new books. All of these are new, actually. I'm such a liar. These are all new, but I wasn't able to find any of these secondhand because this one was fresh off the press. But I knew I needed it, and this one I need to read again. It is so short, and it dives into the main theme of Braiding Sweetgrass, which is reciprocity. So if you liked Braiding Sweetgrass, but you want something short, sweet, easy to read in a literal day, I highly recommend this book. Robin talks about the serviceberry plant and how it gives to its environment and also takes from it. He walks us through how this relates to us as well. We cannot give 100% to our communities or environments, nor can we take 100% either. So we must find this balance of reciprocity within ourselves, just like everything does in nature, because guess what? We're part of nature too. Not only this, but we can learn and explore about how something that benefits me also benefits you, and vice versa. I think it is a beautiful illustration about how progress for one person or progress for one group or community can benefit every single person. Love, love, love that one. And I loved another Robin Wall Kimmerer book this year, Gathering Moss, which was her very, very first book, and I ate it up. I didn't even know Gathering Moss existed until I got and finished The Serviceberry and was like, does Robin Wall Kimmerer have any more books? Yes, she does. This one was written over 20 years ago, I think. And I gave this a listen just after I finished my first lesson in botany about moss. So I was like, perfect. I know about moss. Let me give this a listen. I think I enjoyed it more because I had just taken botany, because I understood all of these plant terms that she was talking about. I understood like what they looked like. It was like such a fun listen as a budding botanist myself. I also reread Braiding Sweetgrass early this year for my Eco Book Club too. I enjoyed much more now that I have taken botany. Anyway, now I'm sure I would have enjoyed it regardless because Robin Wall Kimmerer is just such a talented author and storyteller. Every single story that she painted in this book was so vivid, and I felt like I was right there with her standing in a river. She so beautifully illustrates the plants and the ecosystem and her research and her processes. Just like her other books, this book is full of facts and detail and science and information, but it feels like you're listening to a cozy story with your grandmother curled up next to the fireplace. So it's kind of hard to say which one of her books is my favorite, but it might be Gathering Moss. I loved this one. So you'll just have to read all 3 of her books and let me know which one of them is your favorite. Yet another Eco Book Club read, lots on this list, is Not the End of the World by Hannah Ritchie. Though this has been on my TBR for literal years, I was so glad to have the final push from the Eco Book Club to finally read this one. Rather, listen to it, which I do have some critiques about because I loved this one. Let me talk about the things that I loved first, because I've got like some really, really high points and some really low points as well, but overall enjoyed this one and I reference it all the time. So she is a data scientist and a climate scientist. So she busts common myths about eco-living and climate change, from palm oil to vegan eating to flying and so much more. I love her research and the levels of nuance that she provides that I think is extremely lacking in the eco space, not only like from content creators. If you're a content creator watching this, please use more nuance, but also in books. Like I talked about in Stop Saving the Planet, zero nuance in that book, zero. And that was the most frustrating part, I think. It was like, did she have some valid critiques of the environmental movement? Absolutely. But was there any nuance there? Absolutely not. And I love that Hannah Ritchie talks about this unapologetically. Like she'll say something like, oh, I used to fully believe this until I looked into the nuance, until I looked into the research, and then I found this to be accurate. So I also love that normalization of being able to and willing to change your mind when presented with new information, because that is so important as well amongst all communities, but I think especially as a scientist. And the end of the book, so good, because she makes sure to leave us hopeful. I've been saying this a lot recently too, and this is where I learned it from. There's scary data out there. There are scary facts out there. That is not doomism. We shouldn't shy away from a scary fact just because it's scary and call people doomist and alarmist for saying something scary. There's a difference between a scary fact and doom, and as Minnie had a whole new outlook on climate facts, essentially. And I also love her message of small actions. Yeah, turning off the lights when you leave a room, not gonna save the planet, but that 1/2 gram of CO2 that you prevent from going into the atmosphere does matter. And I also really, really love that she really focuses on the biggest things that we can do for the planet as individuals, such as eating less meat, flying less, and honestly learning. She says a lot of the same things that I like to say, like your small actions matter, focus on the big things, etc., etc. And if people don't listen to me, fine, but I really hope that they listen to Hannah. Now, I do have some critiques. I know I said I love the level of nuance and research that she included, but I think it could have been more. There are some topics that she just brushed over, and I wish she would have expanded on a little bit more. Honestly, it would be very fascinating for her to write an entire book on each of the topics that she covered. I know that's a lot of work. I'm not like demanding her do that. I just really loved her research and her nuance, and I would love to see more of it. But also, this very well could have just been a fault of me listening to it on audio, because from the Eco Book Club discussion, everybody's like, oh yeah, like I read the print version and there were some really great charts and graphs in here, and I'm like, charts and graphs. So that is a flaw of the audiobook. Not only is there not the depiction of all of these things, but there's no mention of it either. It would have been really nice to have like a disclaimer, I guess, at the beginning of the audiobook. Hey, be sure to head to our website to look at these charts and graphs to help you better understand the facts that we are about to present. And lastly, the subtitle of the book was critique of mine, and it is that we will be the first generation to live sustainably. And she expands on this for about the first entire chapter. And quite frankly, had this not been a book club read, I probably would have closed the book, never finished it. It felt quite, I don't necessarily want to say condescending, arrogant, a little bit white saviory, not gonna lie. There have been and still are generations of humans on this planet currently, or in the past, that have lived sustainably. Maybe put a different qualifier on that, like maybe be the first Europeans to live sustainably, but even then, like surely our European ancestors lived sustainably at one point too. Maybe the first modern generation to live sustainably, I don't know, because like, yeah, obviously my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents even didn't live all that sustainably. And she does expand on this a little bit as she moves on throughout the first few chapters of the book. It's just a very weird take. I think her focusing more on hopeful climate news and how we can move into a green future without compromising like the economy and our livelihoods and the things that we enjoy would have been a better subtitle, because just saying nobody's ever lived sustainably before. Everybody has been so wasteful, and we're gonna be the saviors of the planet. We're gonna be the ones who finally live sustainably. It just felt a little bit out of touch. Didn't love that, but overall, really enjoyed this book. It's one of my favorites. And lastly for today is Dark Laboratory, and this one truly also one of my favorites. I wanted to listen to it again immediately after I finished it. That's how good it is. So the subtitle is On Columbus, Climate Change, and Colonialism, or something along those lines, but our author explores the Caribbean as a site of both idyllic imagination and brutal colonial experimentation, linking the region's history to the origins of the climate crisis. And as the title kind of implies, this book is dark, it is heavy. If that is something that would affect you, maybe steer clear of this book, maybe wait till you're in the right headspace. but I think this book is extremely, extremely important to read because it is so scientific, it is so research-based, evidence-based, and I learned so much. And this is why I want to read it again. I want to read it again in print, like with notes. It left plenty of room for self-reflection, and it got me thinking about my own starting career in science as a botanist, about how botany has a dark and racist history, as do many other fields of science. And all of these fields have a long way to go when it comes to straying away from their racist origins. It was very eye-opening to the root cause of climate change, colonialism and capitalism. We way too often villainize small things like a plastic straw, a plastic water bottle. And yeah, those things aren't great, but banning straws isn't gonna get us anywhere. We have to get to the root of the problem, not the very tippy top of the tree of the problem, all the way down. And that is colonialism and capitalism. So she takes us to the root of the problem, and she might not offer solutions, she might not know how to save the world, but just simply learning about the origins of the climate crisis, it's just so important in making sure that we all have the right frame of mind when talking about climate change, tackling these problems, and encouraging others to live this lifestyle. So if you're looking for your next book in your intersectionality journey, let it be this one. This one was so good. I have all of these books and more of my recommendations listed on my website, which you can get through an indie bookstore. If you're gonna buy any of these books, please shop small, shop indie, shop at your local bookstore, or go get a library card for free, borrow these books on audio, on print, digitally, and ebook. There are so many ways that you can borrow and read these days. Once again, leave your eco-friendly and or political books down below. And once again, let me know down below, what did you craft? I'm trying to finish a few more stitches of this last ball of t-shirt yarn. Full video coming soon on how I make my t-shirt yarn, how I make my t-shirt rugs, because this is number 5. I have done just about 1 row. I'm sure you can't see a whole lot of progress, but here's what we're working with so far. But that is all that I have for today. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it all the way to the end. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you enjoy some reading. I'm excited to keep reading. And yes, you can join the Eco Book Club down below for just $1 a month, where most of these books come from these days, because that is how I read my eco books. Thank you guys for inspiring me, being part of my book club, supporting me in that way. I will see you all in the next video, but until then, remember that your small actions make a big difference in the long run. Bye guys. I've made a grave error. Okay, I gotta take some of this out.